I'm Dave Potter with Digital Journal, and we're here at Inventures. I'm joined today by Kelsey Hahn, co-founder of Monarch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So, your career has seen you go through research, you've done consulting, and now entrepreneurship. What drew you to the leadership space in the first place?
That's an easy one to answer. So I grew up immersed in sports like most Canadian kids. So grew up in Saskatchewan playing hockey since I was 4 years old and stayed with that into college, into university, and have always had a love and fascination for all things team, coaching, leadership. I think from very early ages, I was fascinated by how a team of less talented, let's call them B players, with really strong culture and leadership can beat the team with like a few superstars and big egos and a really terrible culture. Seeing that in hockey, growing up in that, I knew that I wanted to do something in that space. And so did an HR degree because at the time that was kind of the touch to people, I would say, in organizations. And then eventually went on to do a master's where I studied sports teams. So studied really sports teams as a proxy for organizations. So trying to apply what we know about athletes, how they engage in growth and development, performance, feedback loops, all of that, how we can apply that to the study of teams and organizations.
And so now you're co-founder of Monarch. Mm-hmm. For those who aren't familiar with it, can you tell me a little bit about Monarch?
Yeah, so Monarch is an AI-powered leadership development and performance optimization platform, particularly where we are helping first-time managers or middle managers practice intentional leadership behaviors in the same way that athletes would practice quite intentionally. So through our software, they come in, they practice regularly, they're building habits to stick long-term. And some of our new technology is actually enabling them to get real live coaching inside of internal meetings. So we've effectively built our AI to come into your live internal meetings with your direct reports and give you feedback on how you're showing up as a leader.
And so, I mean, obviously the technology part of it is part of the difference, but there's a lot of leadership training opportunities out there. What makes Monarch different? What sort of made you think that there was a gap that needed to be filled?
Yeah, so the biggest gap is kind of the story that I just told, which is that leaders in organizations are never really getting great feedback on their performance. We can do big 360-degree assessments where our direct reports and our leaders are assessing our performance after the fact, recalling instances, behaviors. We can get coaching, executive coaching, that again, a coach is coaching me on what I tell them. So hindsight, so much bias. We are never actually getting data on the experience between the leader and their direct reports. And technology has changed the game with that. Now that we're leading so much virtually and in hybrid formats, we can put technology in the room and capture that data to provide more intelligent and real-time support. I would say the other thing that we do that really differentiates us is it's kind of a popular term now, but true learning in the flow of work. So leaders today are busier than they've ever been. So we're working more than we've ever worked in the history of working generations. The average size of teams has grown since 2014. I think the average direct reports used to be 4 per leader. We're up to 11 now. And managers or leaders are now expected to manage the whole person. So the complexity of leadership has gotten tenfold. We're now managing personalities, trauma, anxiety, political affiliations, performance, and potential. So that's all to say that leaders don't need more half-day workshops where we're going to learn a bunch of things and then try to take them back to our workplace and forget them. That's just not an effective way to build habits. And so what we need is to meet leaders. We need to catch them with learning opportunities in the moments they're doing them. And so we need to embed learning inside the work, which is what Monarch does.
Something I've always found problematic is that people become people leaders because they're good doers.
Yeah.
And often you're not trained. You've been making this widget for a while. You're good at making the widget. Now you run a team of widget makers. Your job has totally changed. Mm-hmm. Nobody thought about whether you're ready for that kind of job, well suited to it, as it's just a totally different thing. How do you think Monarch can help close that gap in terms of helping either identify people who are good, likely to be good leaders, or training those who suddenly find themselves in a leadership role?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what we do. And I think being headquartered in Calgary, where a lot of our clients exist today, are in energy, clean technology, manufacturing, and industrial services. So we are often working with engineers and geologists who are just that. They have been pushed into leadership roles because they're technically really strong in their roles. And then someone said, oh, well, now you deserve a team. That's not how it works, as we know. And I think we're learning more about that, obviously, in the last 10 years. And so we are helping those leaders get proficient in their people leadership skills. So how to delegate properly, how to influence, how to properly facilitate and ask questions and grow your people. Now, I think the important part of that is not everyone should be a leader, right? And so also helping organizations, to your point on the organizational side, a little bit on the selection of who should be in these programs, who really has leadership potential in the first place.
Sort of destigmatizing the idea that leadership isn't the only path up. You can be successful and not be a leader.
And that's actually, I think the model or the term for that is helix organizations, where you can have two different streams to grow your career. So you can have a technical track where you're still progressing, you're getting your pay bumps, you're getting your promotions, but you're not actually responsible for people, and then the people leadership side. So yeah, we often work with organizations to say, hey, have you ever asked your leaders if they want to be leading people? Because some of them don't.
So you're on your sort of website, you segment out executive leadership training versus sort of people leader training. How do the two differ?
It's a really good question. So sometimes with executive leadership, they have gone through a lot of other programming. So the foundational skills are there. They've also likely been leaders for 15 plus years, and so learned some of the foundational things through the School of Hard Knocks. And now they're at a place where they're really looking to level up their training. And so we work with them more on skills related to transformational leadership. So how to build charisma, how to inspire the team, how to set transformational vision, things like that. Many times with people leaders and new managers, we are absolutely setting the foundation of how do we lead oneself properly. We can then progress to leading teams and eventually leading organizations. So we kind of have a 3-step tier that we work with our leaders and progress with them throughout their careers.
You talk about wanting to turn people into super leaders. What makes a leader a super leader?
That's another good question. So for me, super leaders are... Have you ever had a super leader?
I have, actually, yeah.
How did they make you feel?
Well, they gave you space to try things. They are supportive and are not dictatorial, sort of, not telling you what to do, but helping you learn what to do without getting in the way. But I think it's also different for different people.
So I think, super leaders, we can all think of great leaders we've had, and they all look really differently. Not just physically, but they have different personalities. They might have different interests and hobbies and technically different skills, but they all likely made us feel very similarly. So they all maybe had very similar behaviors. For us, that's what a super leader does. They bring out the best in the people around them. There's an awesome quote. It was in the Wall Street Journal about Michael Jordan. I always go back to sports. Michael Jordan, I think they said that he didn't manage people. He didn't just lead his team. He lit them on fire. And I think that's a good analogy for what I think a great leader does, is they ignite something in others, especially right now in a world where I think people don't want to lead. I think we're seeing, we know we're seeing Gen Z is the first generation to actively be opting out of leadership. They're looking at the responsibility. Sure, they're looking at the pay bump, but they're motivated by other things. And they're saying, you know what? I actually don't want that. And so we have an exodus. We have many leaders leaving their positions, and we don't have enough ready stepping into those roles. So great leadership to me is about igniting something amazing in others and making them feel the way you just said, especially in the workplace.
So you've made the leap into being not just a leader, but running the whole team. You've been open about the fact that that's not been easy at all times. What's been the biggest sort of learning for you as a leader, and how has that sort of influenced the way you develop Monarch?
Good question. Biggest learning. I think something that's always been true for me as a leader is presence, and just how we show up and model. I think particularly a pain point in tech leadership is being really heads down, really focused on the product, and forgetting that as we elevate and grow our team, it really becomes about elevating the team. We do not scale if I can't make super leaders on my team, right? Because they need to be responsible for people. I can't have all direct reports in our company, my co-founder and I. And so I think for us, it's all about capacity building in others. How are we coaching and mentoring? And that's something I try to spend a lot more time intentionally on. So not canceling one-on-ones, being super present with your team, showing up, being mindful of what you're modeling, in everything from one-on-ones to all hands meetings. At all times, you're being watched. And so I just think that's something like we're spending a lot more time thinking about, is really how we're coaching our next leaders.
Are you seeing trends in any available data amongst your customers, whether it's usage or I'm not sure what data you can see in terms of how the training's being used? Are you seeing trends in that amongst your client base? And is it changing over time?
Yeah. So one of the biggest trends we see right now in our data is that burnout is at an all-time high. So we track burnout because it's a really key indicator of leadership success. When you have a team of burnt out people, they're likely about to quit their jobs. And so it's something that we track. If you have people that are succeeding in their roles, they're likely not burnt out. There's a number of factors, but that's one that we track. We've been doing that for the last 12 years. We are seeing the record high levels in the last 12 years. And I think a lot of it points back to everything I just said. We are truly working more than we've ever worked. COVID, if we look at our data pre-COVID and post-COVID, it's pretty crazy, the things that have changed. But as you would know, as most people know, you are connected to your devices. Our calendars are now booked back to back to back. We used to have time to walk in between meetings or drive maybe in between meetings, walk to different buildings. We don't do that now. We're just back to back to back, and there's no real time to do the work except for at night. So burnout is a big one that we're working on teams in resilience, how to manage stress tolerance, building cognitive flexibility. And I would say another big one is just the foundational things. So how to have difficult conversations, how to conduct a performance review. Those basics never go away in terms of again, going back to my point around great leaders should all have the same foundational behaviors. They can have different personalities, they can have different interests, different skill sets, but they need to all have the basics around how do we get work done.
Do you have any examples, or have you seen examples where companies have made material change, or they've seen a big jump once they've started employing some of the learnings and tools?
Yeah, so one of our biggest ones, I won't say our customer name, but they started working with us in 2013. My partner and I had a consulting business prior to starting Monarch, and so when we incorporated Monarch in 2020, we brought a lot of those clients over. So when I say 2013 was one of the first years that we started working with them, they have seen a reduction in turnover by 6%. And it's a energy service company, and that's in their field staff, which is a particular pain point. I mean, any business leader will know losing people costs you months. You're going to budget a month to get someone more than a month to get someone hired and up to speed and rolling in the role. We do that all the time. I mean, when we hire new developers, we give them about 3 to 4 weeks to say you're going to be at full capacity. And so you think about that, even just that amount, that delta. I know for the CEO of that company, he says multiple times, that has been such a cost savings and win for them to see their turnover decrease from 2013 till now by 8%.
You mentioned running a consulting company before, and now a software platform SaaS business.
Yeah.
Two pretty different things. What's been the biggest adaptation or change you've had to make in terms of how you look at leadership?
We're trying to figure out how to get people the tools and the education and use technology to deliver a lot of the things that consultants used to provide. that they don't need to provide anymore, like nudging, like content, like admin tracking. All of that can be done through our technology. And we actually partner. So many of our distribution channels are executive coaches and consultancies, and we partner with them because we want them, when they're with a client, to spend all of that time as really high impact human one-on-one time, pulling out the reflections, the learnings, the insights that only humans can do right now. And when we're talking about the actual like learning and presentation, the delivery of the content, people can do that on their own time. They can do that in their cars. We do that everywhere now. We are like content overload. So we don't think coaches or consultants should be used for those things. And that would be like the biggest switch that we made and what we saw in the market.
So what do you do to keep your own leadership skills refined? What's the one thing you think is most important?
Balance. That's one I think about a lot. And on the journey of Monarch in the last 5 years, have gone through obviously multiple rounds of burnout myself. Healthy founders, healthy leaders equal healthy company, like no doubt. And so really focusing on my own boundaries, obviously with work-life balance or work-life integration, we'll call it. Lots of physical activity, like I try to work out at least daily or get out for a walk. That endorphin release is so critical, I think, for founders and overall wellness. So taking care of your body. And then really strong mentorship and advisory around me. So I don't have a formal coach, probably don't have time right now, but I have a really strong board. I have a really strong advisory group of people that have walked in my shoes and have been there, lived it, seen it, done it, and can help advise and support me. And I try to keep an open mind about how much they challenge me, right? Be challenged, be open to being challenged.
You mentioned that you work with consultants. What's the sort of go-to-market for you? Are you selling into HR? Is it like per seat? What's your model look like?
Yep. So we sell per seat, so per license. Typically per leader per year. We're mostly selling annual contracts. Our leadership training is a journey. We are not going to promise you a 1 week or 1 hour workshop where you're going to be suddenly changed. That doesn't happen. And so we are typically building long-term, but low-touch programming over multiple years. And then we sell direct into organizations and also through our partners, so executive coaches and consultancies that have the clients but are looking for tech-enabled support.
So for an individual whose company hasn't got Monarch for them, what do you think an individual who is, suddenly a people leader, what should they be doing, or what would you recommend?
Well, we also run open cohorts. So so we actually, in the last year, that was a question we got all the time, and we didn't build Monarch initially as a B2C product. But of course, like there are so many leaders in organizations who might have budget, like they might even have personal budget. Some don't have budget and they're saying, I'm drowning, help me. I know one of these leaders right now, and they say to me, like, I am so overwhelmed. I am about to quit my job if I don't figure out a way out of this. And she's doing what we call our open cohort program right now. And so it brings together max 15 leaders across North America. We're running one right now that has biotech leaders. It has a nonprofit CEO. It has an executive director of a technology company, healthcare leaders. It's a really cool mix of leaders. And so they're going through a 6-month program, really learning from their peers and through the coach.
That's great. What's next for Monarch? Sort of final question. What do you see on the horizon? Yeah,
we've had a lot of success in the last year, I would say. A couple things that we're not able to share right now, but some announcements coming in the near term that are really propelling us through the next year. Lots of exciting AI development in our product, particularly the tool that I mentioned in terms of like bringing in that live real-time analysis and feedback of your performance. All of that technology is about to be released in the next month. And so really exciting development time for us and growth of our team in terms of our AI talent. And then pushing into hopefully Europe and the US later this year.
I lied. I'm going to ask one more question. Because you mentioned the real time. Makes sense when you're, as you said, we're on Zoom or you're on whatever video platform.
Yeah.
Do you have a hardware element? Do you do that when people are doing in-person meetings? How do you manage that?
Yeah. So what we have in our pipeline that's coming down is we already have a mobile application. So we're just embedding the note taker recording device into the native app. So
somebody would just open the app.
And we're already having those conversations, testing them beta internally, to the point where now internally in our team, we can't have conversation. We can't have one-on-ones without that in the room because we're afraid it will miss some of the important things that we're talking about. Obviously, there's a big accountability and productivity aspect of what we're doing as well, because it just helps us track and keep organized within our team. So
let's look forward to seeing what comes next.
Yeah, thank you.
For more on innovation, for more on what's happening here at Inventures, check out digitaljournal.com.